He found them shivering behind his cabin. The wind was sharp and cold. Snow covered the ground like a white blanket, and the sky above was gray and heavy. On the far edge of the human colony, deep in the woods, stood a small wooden cabin. Smoke rose from its chimney, and inside, Joel Carter, a quiet human farmer, was making soup. Joel lived alone. He had lost his wife years ago. He had no children. His land was hard, but he survived. Every day was simple. Grow food, fix machines, eat, sleep, repeat. But that night, everything changed. The sound in the dark. Joel was stirring the pot when he heard it. A soft sound from outside. Not a machine. Not the wind. Something else. A whimper. He grabbed his old rifle and walked to the back door. The wind hit his face as he stepped outside. Snow crunched under his boots. He followed the sound to the back wall of the cabin. Then he saw them, two figures crouched together, shaking. They were small, maybe young teens. Their skin was light blue, almost glowing under the snow. One had long silver hair. The other looked even smaller, her head resting against her sister's shoulder. They were aliens, thin, weak, almost frozen. Joel lowered his rifle. He took a step forward. The older one looked up sharply, eyes wide with fear. She pulled the younger girl closer and bared her teeth. Joel raised his hands. "Hey. It's okay. I'm not going to hurt you." They didn't understand, but they didn't run either. He looked around. No bags, no tools, no shoes, just rags. Joel took off his coat and knelt slowly. He placed it in front of them. "Take it. Come inside, you'll freeze out here." The older girl didn't move, but the younger one, barely conscious, gave a small cry. Joel stepped closer, gently picked her up, and wrapped her in the coat. The older one growled, but didn't stop him. "Trust me," he said. "Please." Finally, she stood and followed. Inside the cabin, Joel placed the younger girl on a blanket near the fire. The older one stood close, eyes watching every move he made. Joel poured hot soup into a small bowl and held it out. The older girl sniffed it, then looked at him with suspicion. She said something in a soft alien language. Joel turned on his translator. It crackled, then translated, "Why help?" Joel paused, then said, "Because you're cold, and I'm not a monster." She stared at him for a long moment, then slowly took the bowl. Their first meal. The soup was simple. Boiled roots, dried, meat, and herbs. But the girls ate as if they hadn't tasted food in days. The older one ate with care. The younger one, eyes still half closed, drank with both hands, lips shaking. Joel poured more. He didn't ask questions. He just fed them. When they were done, he gave them extra blankets and sat across the room, watching quietly. After some time, the older girl looked at him again. She pointed to herself and said, "Tali," then pointed to the younger one. "Mira." Joel nodded. "Tali. Mira." She pointed to him. "You?" "Joel," he said with a small smile. "Joel," she repeated slowly. Her voice was soft, almost broken. Then, very quietly, she said, "Thank you." The next morning, Joel walked into town to get extra supplies. The snow had stopped, but the air was still heavy. At the trading post, he asked for blankets and dried food. The shopkeeper raised an eyebrow. "Expecting visitors?" "No, just helping someone," Joel replied. "Not more strays?" the man asked. "Heard some aliens escaped the camps." Joel didn't answer. The man leaned closer. "Be careful, Joel. Feed the wrong ones and you'll bring trouble to your door." Joel grabbed the supplies and left. Back at the cabin, when he returned, Mira was sleeping near the fire, her small hands curled into her coat. Tali was awake, watching him from the corner. Joel placed food on the table. "You can stay," he said gently, "as long as you need." Tali looked at her sister, then at him. Then slowly, she nodded, and for the first time her eyes softened. She believed him, even if just a little. They were afraid to eat until he said one simple thing. Snow fell gently outside Joel's cabin. Inside, it was warm and quiet. The fire crackled. A pot of fresh soup boiled slowly on the stove. The smell of herbs filled the small room. Joel stood at the kitchen counter, preparing breakfast. 2 bowls, 2 spoons, 2 hungry guests. He looked toward the corner where the alien girls sat wrapped in blankets. Tali, the older one, was awake, watching him with careful eyes. Mira, the younger sister, was still curled up, her face pale, her breathing soft. Joel placed 1 bowl of soup on the table, then the second. He stepped back and pointed. Eat. Tali stood slowly, holding Mira's hand. They both walked toward the table, cautious. Tali sniffed the soup first. Mira looked up at her, unsure. Then, suddenly, Mira pulled back. She shook her head, whispering fast in her language. Tali touched her shoulder and whispered something calming. But Mira's body trembled. Joel turned on the translator. Tali's voice came through. She thinks it's poison. Joel's heart sank. He had seen it before. Aliens in camps, tricked, abused, given food that hurt them. Of course they were. Afraid. Joel sat down slowly across the table. He picked up 1 spoon and ate a full bite of the soup, then another. He smiled. See? He said gently. It's safe. Tali watched closely. Then she looked at Mira and nodded. Mira, shaking slightly, reached for the spoon. She took a small bite, swallowed, then waited. Nothing happened. No pain. Her eyes widened. She took another bite, faster this time. Then another. Joel poured more into both bowls. The girls ate slowly, but this time with trust. A moment of peace. When the meal was done, Mira leaned back against the wall, her eyes half closed but no longer afraid. Tali looked at Joel. Why? She asked softly. Joel raised an eyebrow. Why what? Why feed us? He thought for a second, then said, because someone should have before me. Tali said nothing, but her expression changed. Something behind her cold, guarded eyes melted just a little. Small things. Later that morning, Joel showed them how to use the water pump. He handed Tali a clean towel and showed her where the soap was. Mira tried to walk on her own for the first time since arriving. Her legs wobbly, but strong enough. Joel gave her a soft toy he found in a storage box. It was a stuffed animal, old but clean. Mira held it tightly and smiled. That was the first time he saw her teeth, not sharp, not strange, just like a child. A quiet evening. That night, Joel sat near the fire, reading from a data tablet. The girls were asleep, Mira hugging the stuffed toy, Tali curled around her protectively. He looked at them and sighed. They were safer now, but not safe. Outside, the world still hated them, and he knew trouble would come. But for now, he had done something right. He whispered to the fire, "You're not poison. You're hope." And the flame flickered in reply. He let them sleep under his roof, and that's when the dream started. The wind outside howled through the trees, but inside the wooden cabin, everything was warm and still. Joel sat by the fire, sipping hot tea. His body was tired, but his mind was calm. The 2 alien girls, Tali and Mira, were asleep under thick blankets in the corner. Joel had given them space. He didn't ask questions. He just watched over them. But that night, something changed. The first dream, Joel drifted off, in his chair, his eyes closing softly. But instead of the usual blackness of sleep, he found himself standing in a strange place. It was dark and cold. He looked around. He was in a burned forest, trees turned to ash, the ground covered in smoke. Screams echoed in the distance. Blasts of fire lit the sky. He turned and saw 2 small figures running through the trees. It was them, Tali and Mira, much younger, running barefoot, crying. A ship roared above them. Then, a massive explosion. Joel woke with a jolt. His shirt was wet with sweat. The fire in the cabin had burned. Low, he looked toward the sleeping girls. Mira was shaking. Tali had tears on her cheeks. He whispered, "What was that?" A shared memory. The next morning he told Tali about the dream. She was quiet at first. Then she said, "We showed you." Joel blinked. "What?" Tali sat up slowly. "Our kind. When we feel safe, our thoughts can link. In dreams. Not always. Only when the heart is open." Joel was speechless. "You saw our escape," she said softly. "Our home was attacked. We ran for days." Joel nodded slowly. I felt it. I heard it." She lowered her head. "Now you know what we carry." Joel placed a hand on his chest. No one should carry that alone. That night, Joel left the door to their room open. He sat again by the fire. He didn't plan to sleep, but his eyes closed anyway. The second dream, this time the place was different. He stood in a room full of light. Floating crystals danced in the air. Little Mira was laughing, spinning in circles. Tali stood near a glowing orb, singing softly. There was peace, there was warmth, and a feeling of deep love. Joel smiled, but then the light started to fade. One by one, the crystals turned dark, and Mira reached out toward him, eyes wide with fear. "Don't leave us." Joel woke again, gasping. A new promise in the morning. Mira clung to his arm. She didn't speak much, but her eyes said everything. She remembered the dream too. Joel sat them both down. He looked at Tali and said clearly, "You're not guests anymore. This is your home." Mira's eyes filled with tears. Tali nodded slowly. "Then we will protect it." Joel smiled. "And I'll protect you." But far away, someone else had seen the crash signal weeks ago. Someone dangerous, and they were already on their way. But for now, inside that small wooden cabin, hope was growing, even in dreams. He took them into town, and everyone turned against him. The sun was bright that morning. Snow had melted slightly, turning the path into soft mud. Joel tightened the straps on the old cart and turned to the cabin. "Tali, Mira," he called, "we're going to town. You need real clothes, and I need more food." The sisters stood in the doorway. Tali was quiet, as always. Mira clung to her sister's arm. They both looked nervous. "You'll be okay," Joel said softly. "Just stay close to me." The town. The small town near the edge of the human colony was called Ridgepost. It had shops, fuel stations, and a market square where farmers sold supplies. As Joel walked in with the girls behind him, people started to notice. And then they started to stare. Whispers began almost at once. Is that aliens with him? Why would Joel bring them here? They're not allowed inside the square. Joel ignored the voices. He walked straight to the shop. Inside, he found jackets and boots for the girls. They tried them on quietly, their eyes wide with wonder. Mira smiled when she touched a scarf made of soft wool. But outside the shop, a crowd was starting to form. Trouble. When Joel walked out, holding bags in both arms, a man stepped in front of him. It was Harris, a bitter farmer with a loud voice. "You're feeding them?" Harris growled. "Bringing them here like pets?" Joel frowned. "They're not pets. They're children." "They're aliens," Harris spat. "Did you forget what happened on Colony 3? They destroyed half a village." Joel shook his head. "These girls didn't destroy anything. They were the ones who ran." Another man stepped closer. "We don't want them here, Joel. You're putting all of us at risk." Someone in the crowd shouted, "They'll bring the war to us." Joel stood firm. "They're hungry, cold, alone, and I'm not going to let fear turn us into monsters." The girls react. Tali stepped forward and placed her hand gently on Mira's shoulder. The little one looked afraid, her eyes glowing faintly. Tali looked at the crowd and said in simple English, "We mean no harm." A woman in the back lowered her eyes. But Harris wasn't done. "You bring them here again, Joel," he warned, "and you're on your own." Joel stared at him. "I've been on my own for a long time," he said. "But at least now, I'm proud of who's standing beside me." Back at the cabin. That night, Joel unpacked the food and clothes. Tally helped fold the items. Mira sat near the fire hugging the scarf. "Why do they hate us?" Mira asked softly. Joel knelt beside her. "Because fear is loud," he said. "But kindness is quiet." Tally looked at him and asked, "Should we leave?" Joel shook his head. "No, you don't run anymore. Not while I'm standing." But far away, a ship entered orbit, unmarked, dark, tracking a heat signal from an old forest. Inside the ship, a cold voice said, "We've found them." They revealed what they really were, and why everyone feared them. The night was quiet, but the stars above the cabin seemed darker than usual. Joel sat near the fire checking his old rifle. He didn't expect trouble, but after the town's warning, he wanted to be ready. Mira was asleep under a blanket, her stuffed animal still in her arms. Tally stood outside the cabin, staring up at the sky. Joel walked out and stood beside her. "Can't sleep?" "No," she said quietly. "Something's coming, I feel it." Joel looked up. "You sure?" She nodded. "We've been tracked before." Joel didn't understand everything about the sisters, but he trusted her. Still, he asked the question that had been on his mind for days. "What are you, Tally? I mean, really?" She looked at him, and for a moment she looked afraid. But then she spoke. The truth. "We're called Narian," she said. "From the old star cluster." Joel nodded. "I've heard that name. People say your kind is dangerous." Tally looked down. "Yes, some of us are. But most of us just wanted to live." Joel asked, "Why were you and Mira running?" She took a deep breath. "We weren't just refugees. Mira and I are special." Joel raised an eyebrow. "How?" Tally turned to him. "Our kind has something inside. It's called life echo, a force that connects thoughts, feelings, even energy." Joel listened carefully. Tally continued. "When Mira was born, her echo was too strong. Some said she could destroy machines just by feeling afraid. The armies came. They killed our people to take that power." Joel's face hardened. "They hunted you because she was too powerful?" Tally nodded. "I protected her. We ran. For weeks. Until the crash." A sudden change that moment. A spark flickered near the cabin window. Joel turned quickly. Mira was standing inside, her eyes glowing brightly. The lights in the cabin began to flicker. The fire roared higher, and Joel's metal cup on the table lifted into the air, slowly spinning. Joel stepped back, shocked. "Mira?" She wasn't awake. She was dreaming again, deep inside a memory, and her power was waking with her. Tally rushed inside. "It's happening again." Joel followed. Containing the power, Tally held Mira gently and whispered in their native tongue. The floating objects dropped. The lights returned to normal. Mira's glowing eyes faded. She opened her eyes slowly. Confused. I didn't mean to," she whispered. Joel knelt beside her. "It's okay, I'm not afraid." She looked at him, tears in her eyes. "Everyone's always afraid." Joel smiled softly. "Then they've never seen you the way I do." Outside, the cabin. Far above, the unmarked ship hovered in low orbit. Inside, a voice whispered, "They've awakened. Move in. Full force." A small attack pod broke off, heading straight for the forest below. Back inside, Tally sat beside Joel. "You understand now," she said. "Why the others feared us. Why we couldn't stay anywhere." Joel looked at both girls. "I don't care what's inside you," he said. "You're still kids who were starving. And I'm still the man who made soup." Tali smiled faintly. You don't know what you've done, she said. Joel raised an eyebrow. What? You didn't just feed us, she whispered. You changed our story. When soldiers came for them, he stood alone to protect them. The morning came too fast. Joel opened his eyes to a strange, low hum outside the cabin. He grabbed his coat and stepped out onto the porch. The sky was quiet, but something was wrong. A black dropship hovered just beyond the trees, kicking up snow and dust. Its engines glowed red and its metal sides bore no flag. Mercenaries. Joel's heart sank. They had come for the girls, inside the cabin. Tali grabbed Mira and pulled her away from the window. They found us, she whispered. Joel ran in. You need to hide, now. No, Tali said. We can't keep running. Joel grabbed his old hunting rifle and checked the charge. Then, we fight. Tali looked at him. You'll die. Joel stared at her. Not before I make them wish they hadn't landed. The soldiers arrived. 5 armed men stepped out of the dropship. Their armor was black and sharp, their helmets glowing blue. The leader shouted, This is a restricted area. You are harboring illegal alien fugitives. Hand them over. Joel stepped into the open, rifle in hand. You're not taking them. The soldier raised his weapon. Move, human, you don't understand what you're protecting. Joel's voice was steady. I understand exactly. 2 starving girls, 1 gift, and a heart bigger than any of yours. The soldiers aimed. So did Joel. Inside the cabin, Mira sat on the floor, crying softly. Tali knelt beside her, whispering. You don't need to be afraid, Tali said. You need to believe in what you are. Mira shook her head. I don't want to hurt anyone. You won't, Tali said. But if we lose him, we lose everything. Outside, gunfire. The first shot came from the mercenaries. Joel fired back, hitting one in the leg. But they were faster, better armed. He ducked, behind a crate as shots flew past his head. Joel! Tali screamed from the door. He looked back once and saw something he didn't expect. Mira was glowing, her feet lifted off the floor, her eyes burned bright silver. And then, everything stopped. Power unleashed. The wind froze, the snow floated in. Mid-air. The bullets hung still like trapped birds. The mercenaries looked around in fear, frozen in place. Joel dropped his rifle in shock. Mira stepped outside. She wasn't angry. She wasn't wild. She was calm. With a wave of her small hand, the soldiers' weapons melted into the snow like water. Their armor cracked and fell off. They dropped to their knees, shaking. And Mira spoke, not with anger, but with peace. We don't want to fight, but we will never be hunted again. The leader stared at her, terrified. Then he looked at Joel. She's not a girl. She's a force. Joel stepped beside her. She's a child. You just never gave her a chance to grow. The retreat. The mercenaries didn't speak. They simply stood up, gathered what was left of their gear, and returned to the ship. No fight. No war. Just silence. And awe. That night, Joel sat on the porch again, rifle resting by the door. Mira leaned against him, her face quiet but peaceful. Tali stood nearby, watching the stars. You protected us, she said. Joel smiled. No, she protected all of us. Mira looked up. Will they come back? Joel thought for a second. Maybe. But next time, they'll know what they're walking into. They gave him something no human had ever received. The sun rose gently over the snowy forest. For the first time in weeks, the air felt still, calm, safe. Joel stepped out of the cabin with a cup of tea in his hand. Birds chirped, trees stood tall and silent. And beside him, sitting on the porch in matching boots and warm coats, were Tali and Mira. Mira leaned her head on his shoulder. Tali stood quietly watching the sky. None of them spoke. They didn't need to a quiet day. They worked together on the farm that afternoon. Joel taught Mira how to plant seeds in the soft soil, even though the snow had barely melted. Tali helped repair the water pump, using her hands to warm the pipes gently with her life echo. Joel smiled. They weren't just surviving anymore. They were living. A gift he didn't expect. That night, after dinner, the girls called Joel to the center of the cabin. Tali held something wrapped in cloth. "This is for you," she said. Joel opened it slowly. Inside was a glowing crystal, soft blue light, smooth and warm to the touch. "What is it?" he asked. Tali looked serious. "It's called an echo core. It holds the memory of our people." Joel blinked. "You're giving this to me?" "No human has ever received one," Tali said. "But no human has ever done what you did." Joel looked down at the crystal. "I don't know if I'm worthy of this." "You fed us when we were starving," Mira said softly. "You protected us when others wanted to hurt us. You believed in us when we couldn't believe in ourselves." Tali nodded. "This is not a gift, Joel. It's a bond. Our memory will live in you now." Joel placed the echo core on the shelf near the fire. He didn't need riches or medals. That small light was more than enough. The message weeks later, a communication signal arrived from a nearby Narian scout ship. A peaceful one. Tali spoke with them in her language. They offered to bring her and Mira home to a new colony where other survivors lived. Tali looked at Joel. He said nothing. He just smiled gently and said, "It's your choice." Mira walked over and hugged him tightly. "I want to stay," she whispered. Tali smiled. "So do I." A new beginning. The cabin became more than a home. It became a sanctuary, a place of peace between species. Visitors came, some human, some Narian. They shared food, stories, memories, and Joel, he just kept doing what he always did. He fed people, with soup, with kindness, and with a heart too big to measure. Final scene. One evening, as the sun set behind the trees, Joel sat by the fire, the girls beside him. The echo core glowed softly on the shelf. Tali whispered, "Do you know what your name means in our language?" Joel smiled. "No idea." She looked at him, eyes shining. "It means, the one who chose light." Joel looked at the fire and quietly replied, "Then I'm glad I did."